Hey you guys, it's Amy with Myths and Legends from all over the world. Today we are in the US again, and we're going to be talking about the legend of Davy Crockett. Now, this legend is one of the most famous in the US, that's why I chose it, and every American child knows the story of Davy Crockett. We even have a little song about it. I forget now, but I remember the first part goes, Davy, Davy Crockett, king of the wild frontier. And we learned that in school. So I think it shows how important this legend is to our culture. And when you hear it, you can begin to understand the personality characteristics that Americans valued at that time. Now, Davy Crockett is similar to Johnny Appleseed, which was our last video, in that there are many small stories about him. And as the time went on, the stories became crazier and crazier. They got changed around. Okay, so listen to the story and go ahead and write down the listening questions. Number 1, what was Davy Crockett campaigning for? Number 2, what did the crowd want from Davy? Number 3, because he didn't have any money, how did he pay the bartender? Number 4, how did Davy continue to buy rounds of drinks for the crowd? Number 5, how many terms did Davy serve in Congress? So again, this story is one of many stories about Davy Crockett, and I really think you will enjoy it. Okay, bye-bye for now.
Okay, here's the vocabulary. Number 1, hunter, someone who hunts animals. In early times, the men were hunters while the women stayed at home and took care of the house. Congress, a national legislative assembly. The U.S. Congress is made up of 2 houses, the House of Representatives and the Senate. Campaign, to compete for a position in politics. Presidential candidates must campaign for months before the general election. Bartender, an employee who mixes and serves alcoholic drinks in a bar. If you're friendly with a bartender, he'll give you free drinks. Coon, a North American raccoon. During the winter, coons try to get into the house to search for food. Skin, to strip the skin off. The hunters skinned the rabbit before trying to cook it. Voter, a citizen who has a legal right to vote. The president spoke with voters this Sunday during his campaign tour. Counter, a horizontal piece of furniture used as a table. Please put the groceries on the kitchen counter, and I will put them away later. Grip, to hold fast or firmly. The child gripped his mom's hand as they went into the doctor's office. Tug, to pull hard. I hated when my brother would tug at my hair. Slap, to set down quickly and noisily. The man slapped the money on the table. Round, a serving to each of the group. The rich customer ordered a round of beers for everyone in the bar. Might, physical strength, power. Might is right means that only the strongest people survive. Run low, to be about to be spent or finished. Let's stop at a gas station soon because we are running low on gas. Secure, to get by special effort. He secured a good job after impressing the interviewer. Grit, fortitude and determination. That athlete has real grit. Even though he knows he will lose, he continues to give his all. To cast pearls before swine. Offering a treat to an unappreciative audience. Trying to help these idiots is like casting pearls before swine. Whip, to defeat thoroughly. The red team whipped their opponents in the last game. Opposed, being in opposition, disagreeing with. I am opposed to this war. Term, a limited period of time. A presidential term is usually 4 years. Well, they say that Davy Crockett, the most famous bear hunter in the USA, once ran for election in Congress. He was campaigning in town one day, standing on a large tree stump and talking to a big crowd when one of the men complained, saying he was really thirsty. Of course, that man's opinion started a wave of thirsty people to shout out as well. They said they wanted free drinks, and they wanted Davy to pay for them out of his own pocket. If he didn't pay, he wouldn't get elected. Davy knew he'd better do something before his campaign ended right there and then. So he took the whole crowd to the local bar, what they call a shanty back in those days, and Davy himself led the singing and ordered drinks for the whole crew. Of course, the bartender wanted to see his money, and Davy didn't have any, but he told the man to wait, and he ran off into the woods with his gun, watched by the amused and derisive crowd. It didn't take him but a minute to discover a coon, and Davy shot it at first chance. The crowd wasn't nearly as skeptical when he reappeared with his prize, all skinned and ready to give to the barman. Back in those days, a coonskin was as good as money, and the bartender accepted it immediately. Soon the whole crowd was afloat, drinking rum like there was no tomorrow. When the coonskin was all paid out, Davy went back outside to his stump to start another speech about the election and what he meant to do for all the voters if he was elected. But news had got around, and it turned out this crowd was just as thirsty as the first one. Davy took them all to the shanty, wondering if he'd have to go out and shoot another coon. Then he spied a bit of the coonskin sticking out from behind the bar counter. The bartender must have stuck the skin under the counter to keep it safe. Davy leaned up against the counter and stuck his right hand down until he was gripping the piece of coonskin and gave it a good, hard tug. The coonskin slid right through the bars and into his hand. Triumphantly, Davy slapped it onto the counter and ordered a round of drinks from the barman, to the delight of the crowd. As they were drinking, Davy made the rounds of the crowd, campaigning with all his might. He kept an eye on the bartender, and, sure enough, the man put the coonskin behind the counter in the same place as before, with part of it sticking through a gap in the bars. So Davy wandered over the bar, where the drink started running low, and paid for another round with the same coonskin. He treated his new friends again and again and again by the same trick. Davy Crockett purchased 10 rounds with the same coonskin before the day was over, and that joke secured the election for him. Even the bartender had to admit that anyone that clever had the real grit for them in Congress, and the man running against him might as well cast pearls before swine, because the swine were the only ones that would vote for this opponent. Davy Crockett won his election to Congress, and he soon became known as the Coonskin Congressman. He first introduced himself to his new colleagues in Congress by saying, "I am that same Davy Crockett, fresh from the backwoods, half horse, half alligator, a little bit of snapping turtle. I can whip my weight in wildcats and eat any man opposed to Andrew Jackson." Davy Crockett served 3 terms in Congress and only lost his bid for a 4th term when he took up a position that was opposed to Jackson.
Okay, I hope you guys enjoyed that story. Here are the listening questions and answers. Number 1, what was Davy Crockett campaigning for? He was campaigning for a position in Congress. Yes. He wanted to be in the government, and I think you can kind of start to understand the mindset of the people from that era. Nowadays, we want somebody in politics to be very well-spoken, very polite, and back then they just wanted someone who's a really manly guy. So Davy Crockett is a very good example of what people were looking for at that time for politicians. Number 2, what did the crowd want from Davy? They were thirsty, so they wanted him to buy them drinks. Yes, this has not changed. Even now, if you want people to vote for you, you basically have to buy them things. Number 3, because he didn't have any money, how did he pay the bartender? So he shot a coon, skinned it, and gave the coon skin to the bartender instead of money. If you can imagine how messy this was, I think for me that would really gross me out. But they say that the coon skins were really valuable, so the bartender took it. Number 4, how did Davy continue to buy rounds of drinks for the crowd? He stole the coonskin back from the bartender and pretended that it was a new coonskin. He did this 10 times. And this, for me, is probably the most important part of the story, because if we view it from our moral values now, we would say, oh, well, he cheated the bartender. Why would we value that as a good thing? But back then, they just saw that as being resourceful or just really intelligent. So when I read the story nowadays, I think, wow, that's really terrible. But back then, they thought the story was really funny and they really respected him for doing that. Okay, so last one, number 5. How many terms did Davy serve in Congress? He served 3 terms in Congress. Again, you can see a difference in time. 3 terms in Congress at that time was quite long. Nowadays in the US, if you are a congressman, you're probably a congressman for life. They don't really change you out because you have so much money, so much power, that sort of thing. Okay, so now listen for the pronunciation and then you'll be done. Okay, last part is pronunciation. Number 1, if he didn't pay, he wouldn't get elected. Okay, so the first thing that you have to hear is didn't. You'll notice there's no T sound. I don't say didn't, I say didn't. Okay, and the other part is get elected. So these 2 words actually come together and the T becomes a D sound. Get elected, get elected. Okay, let's put it all together. Just listen and then repeat. If he didn't pay, he wouldn't get elected. Okay, number 2. The bartender wanted to see his money and Davy didn't have any. Okay, so the first part is wanted to see. Wanted to see. You can hear again no T in the wanted, and the 2 becomes a T. Wanted to see. Okay, and the second part is have any. Have any. The V and the A from any become like one sound. Have any. Have any. Like that. Okay, so let's say the whole sentence. The bartender wanted to see his money and Davy didn't have any. Okay, number 3. Davy Crockett purchased 10 rounds with the same coonskin. Okay, because with and the, they both have a TH sound, we're going to cut one of those sounds so that you only have to say once. So with the, okay? And please be careful about this word same. Make sure that you say this A sound very long, same. Okay, let's do it one more time. Davy Crockett purchased 10 rounds with the same coonskin. Okay, last one, number 4. Davy Crockett served 3 terms in Congress. Okay, so let's put terms and in together. Terms in. So it becomes a Z sound. Okay, let's say the whole sentence. Davy Crockett served 3 terms in Congress. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this one. This is one of my favorites actually. And as you know, you can come back and we have so many more stories for you. Okay, goodbye everyone.